Welcome guys to my channel after a long break. So in this video I'm not going to actually teach anything. In fact, in this video I will discuss 5 clinical based questions and discuss out the answers of it. Before starting the questions, I want to tell 3 things about this video. First of all the 5 questions are clinical based and are not based on rote learning or information based. Second thing, if you are from first year, then only question 5 is for you. Question 1, 2, 3 and 4 are not for you because it is based on pathology and pharmacology. And lastly, after reading out every question, I have only given 5 seconds to reveal the answers. So if you want to solve the questions, pause the video wherever and whenever you want and then resume to know the answers. So now let's get started with our questions. Question number 1. A 62 years old male comes to the OPD with the complaints of left flank pain and bloody urine. On examination, a palpable mass is felt in the abdomen in the left side just below the diaphragm. The patient also has a long history of smoking. Blood examination shows RBC 7.4 million, WBC 4.5 K, platelets 1.5 lakh, hemoglobin 21.2. On further examination, which of the following will also be seen in the patient? So the answer to this question is varicocele. Now let us understand how did we arrive to the answer of varicocele. First of all, look at the clinical features. Patient comes to the OPD with complaints of left flank pain, bloody urine. Bloody urine means hematuria, and on examination a palpable mass felt in the abdomen. Now these three things are a triad. First is left flank pain, bloody urine and palpable mass. These three things form a triad. This is a triad of renal cancer. Now there are many types of cancer in the kidney. So we don't know which type of cancer is this until we read the next line, that the patient also has a long history of smoking. Patient also has a long history of smoking and the blood examination clearly shows that RBC is raised and hemoglobin is raised. RBC and hemoglobin both are raised, which means the patient has polycythemia vera. Now in which type of renal cancer do you see polycythemia vera? The answer to this is renal cell cancer, because RCC has a paraneoplastic syndrome of polycythemia vera, and RCC is also related to history of smoking. So the disease over here in the patient is RCC, renal cell carcinoma. Now on further examination, which of the following will also be seen? Now to know this, you must know a little more about renal cell cancer. So the RCC, if you must have read, then you must have read that RCC has a tendency to spread to the renal vein, to the left renal vein. In this condition, in this case, in this scenario, the patient has left renal cell carcinoma, left sided RCC. Okay, so if the patient has left sided RCC, so the tumor will spread to the left renal vein and subsequently to the inferior vena cava. Now you have to know a bit more of anatomy, that the left gonadal vein drains into the left renal vein, but the right gonadal vein drains into the inferior vena cava directly. This is a very important anatomical point over here in this question. Now in this condition you can clearly see that the patient has left sided RCC which has infiltrated into the left renal vein. So now the left renal vein is totally obstructed due to the cancer infiltration. So will the left testicular vein be easily drained into the left renal vein? The answer is no, and hence he will develop varicocele. Now if this question was that the patient has right flank pain and bloody urine, on examination mass was felt in the right side, this means, that would mean that the cancer was in the right side and right sided RCC. Now right sided RCC, if the patient would have right sided RCC, then he wouldn't have got varicocele, because the right testicular vein directly drains into the inferior vena cava. So this is how we derive at the answer of varicocele. Question number 2. A patient comes to the clinic with long-standing history of diabetes and complains about constipation and loss of appetite for the last many months. On asking, the patient tells that he has diabetes for the last 20 years and is not taking medicines properly since then. To treat his constipation and loss of appetite, which of the following drugs will you advise? So the answer to this question is option number 2, erythromycin. So let's read the question again. The patient has long-standing diabetes and he has developed constipation and loss of appetite, and the diabetes which he is having is for the last 20 years, and he has not been controlling his diabetes properly because he has not been taking his medicines. So first of all, what is the condition this patient is suffering from? This patient is suffering from diabetic gastroparesis. This patient is suffering from diabetic gastroparesis. So what is diabetic gastroparesis? Gastroparesis means paralysis of the GI system due to diabetes. What type of diabetes? Long standing, overt and uncontrolled diabetes. Okay, so now why has the paralysis occurred? Because the nerves in the GI system are actually not functioning well, and we all know how diabetes actually harms your nerves. Okay, so if the GI system nerves are not working, so it will not stimulate the receptors of the GI system, and hence the motility will be decreased and the patient will develop constipation and loss of appetite. So this is the condition is diabetic gastroparesis. Now many of you must be thinking that this question is about diabetic gastroparesis and we must have never read this, but actually this question is not about diabetic gastroparesis. This question is simply about a drug which has a side effect that increases the motility of the GI system, and hence the answer is erythromycin, because erythromycin is a drug which has a side effect that it stimulates the motilin receptors, which is a very common side effect of erythromycin, and this particular side effect of erythromycin is actually used in patients of diabetic gastroparesis to treat them. In normal patients, in normal person, if we give erythromycin, then they will develop diarrhea because of motilin receptor stimulation, but in diabetic gastroparesis patient, they will get cured of this disease because of that side effect. Now coming to question number 3, what's special in this question? This question is related to coronavirus. That is the special thing in this question. So let's read it. 52 years old lady comes to the OPD with unilateral flank pain and tenderness radiating to the groin and also hematuria. The patient is later diagnosed with calcium oxalate stones. On further asking, the patient tells that she has been taking vitamin C tablets and zinc tablets for the last 5 months to boost her immunity in the wake of coronavirus pandemic. Which of the following is the most probable cause of her stone? First option, she must have having COVID-19 infection and the stone must be a renal complication of coronavirus infection. Second, the stone must be due to excessive intake of vitamin C. Third, the stone must be due to excessive intake of zinc tablets. And fourth, it must have developed due to pre-existing Crohn's disease. So the answer to this question is option number 2, the stone must be due to excessive intake of vitamin C. So first of all, a very important thing about this question is that when you read the question, the first 2 lines actually give the clinical feature of calcium oxalate stones. Okay, the clinical feature of stones. What are the clinical feature of renal stones? That is unilateral flank pain, tenderness radiating to the groin and hematuria. Okay, although in the next line it is already given that the patient is diagnosed with calcium oxalate stone, so you need not worry about the clinical features given in the first and second line because the diagnosis is already given. They are just asking why has the calcium oxalate stones formed in the patient. Okay, so this is a thing that you must learn or you must remember, that vitamin C, excessive use of vitamin C causes calcium oxalate stone formation in the kidney. So this is the thing you have to learn. Okay, how does it cause? Vitamin C causes hypocitraturia. Hypocitraturia means lack of citrate in urine. What does citrate do normally in urine? Citrate chelates the calcium and it doesn't allows the calcium to precipitate in the form of stones. But when you take excessive amount of vitamin C, it causes hypocitraturia, lack of citrate in the urine, and when citrate is not there in the urine, calcium will precipitate in the form of stones. Tell you that option number 1 and option number 3 are completely stupid options. They make no sense. But option number 4, it must have developed due to her pre-existing Crohn's disease. Now let me first tell you that Crohn's disease do cause calcium oxalate stone formation. This is completely true. Calcium oxalate stone formation can occur due to ethylene glycol ingestion, vitamin C abuse or Crohn's disease. But don't you think that if the patient is having Crohn's disease, then the question would have mentioned any clinical feature related to malabsorption, because Crohn's disease is a malabsorption syndrome. So if the patient would have been having a malabsorption syndrome, the patient would have been presented with any clinical feature of malabsorption syndrome, but the patient is not having any sort of malabsorption syndrome clinical features. So in this clinical scenario, option number 4 cannot be the answer. Okay, although calcium oxalate stone do form due to Crohn's disease, this is completely true. Okay, so this was a very important question. And one more thing I should tell you, that in many books there is written that vitamin C is only one vitamin which actually has no side effects or no toxicity, but this is not true. Vitamin C abuse do cause calcium oxalate stone formation, you have to remember this. Okay, and I have also taken this information from first aid book for the USMLE, so you can obviously rely on the source. So now coming to next question, question number 4. A 41 years old male comes to the OPD with complaints of diarrhea and cutaneous flushing. On examination, it is found that he has asthmatic wheezing and right-sided valvular heart disease. 5-HIAA is also raised in urine. Which of the following drugs should be given in this condition? So, first of all, the answer to this question is option number 5, octreotide. So how did we get to the answer? First of all, this is a very easy question. According to me, this is a very easy question because everything is given what you need to reach to the diagnosis. What disease is this patient having? He has diarrhea, he has cutaneous flushing, he has asthmatic wheezing, he has right-sided valvular heart disease. Okay, and most important thing, 5-HIAA is also raised. This clearly tells you about the disease, that this disease is nothing but a carcinoid tumor. Okay, this is a very easy question. Everything is given in this question. The patient is having carcinoid tumor. Okay, carcinoid tumor, what does this release? It release serotonin. And what is the metabolite of serotonin? 5-HIAA. Serotonin is metabolized to 5-HIAA, which is excreted through urine, and hence in carcinoid syndrome we see that 5-HIAA, 5-hydroxyindolacetic acid, is raised in urine. Also the clinical features or others are also given. So this question is reduced to nothing but what is the drug of choice of carcinoid syndrome. This question is nothing but this only. Okay, so what is the drug of choice for carcinoid syndrome? It is octreotide, which is a somatostatin analog. But why don't we use somatostatin directly? Because it has a short half-life of approx 1 minute or maybe something like that. Whereas octreotide, which is a somatostatin analog, has a half-life of 90 minutes. Okay, now let's see other options. Other options like diphenhydramine or loratadine are antihistaminic drugs. These are given to confuse you, because many people will think that because the patient has cutaneous flushing, then we can give option 1 or option 2. Okay, so something like that. And because the patient has having asthmatic wheezing, then few people will think that option number 6 can be the right answer, salmeterol. But you have to go to the main disease. The main disease is carcinoid syndrome. You have to treat that, and the drug of choice for carcinoid syndrome is octreotide. So now coming to the last question, which is the only first year question. Question number 5. A 57 years old male comes to the neuro department with complaints of pill rolling tremor, rigidity, akinesia. There is a comma between rigidity and akinesia, and shuffling gait. The precursor of the neurotransmitter involved in the pathogenesis of this disease is also related to which of the following another disease? Okay, so first of all, this question is a combined physiology and biochemistry combined question or integrated question. So first of all, what do these clinical features tell you? Which disease is this patient having? Pill rolling tremor or resting tremor, rigidity, akinesia, shuffling gait. Okay, so all these features tell nothing but one disease, that is Parkinson's disease. So now the question is asking the precursor of the neurotransmitter involved in the pathogenesis of this disease is also related to which disease? So what is the neurotransmitter related or involved in the pathogenesis of the Parkinson disease? The neurotransmitter is dopamine. And from which precursor is dopamine formed? The answer is phenylalanine. Phenylalanine forms dopamine. So now, which of the following disease is related to phenylalanine derived biomolecule? So as you can see in this table, that phenylalanine forms tyrosine, tyrosine forms dopa, dopa forms dopamine, dopamine forms norepinephrine, and if norepinephrine is methylated, it will form epinephrine. Now you can see dopa here, through the help of tyrosinase enzymes, form melanin. So of course the answer over here is albinism, melanin deficiency, which causes albinism. Okay, so whether the disease is absence of melanin, that is albinism, or absence of or lack of dopamine, that is Parkinson, the precursor to both this disease is phenylalanine. So that is what the question is asking. So let's read other options. So the correct answer is option number 3, albinism. Let's read other options. First is porphyriasis. It is completely unrelated to this topic. Second is pellagra. Pellagra is a disease related to vitamin B3 niacin deficiency. So it is unrelated. MSUD, maple syrup urine disease. This is related to an enzyme called branch chain keto acid dehydrogenase deficiency. Okay, and option number 5, G6PD deficiency, is also unrelated to this. So the answer is albinism. Now lastly, before ending this video, I want to discuss one more thing: flank pain. Those who have solved question number 1 and question number 3 must have encountered with the word flank pain. So what is flank pain? What does the word mean, flank pain? Flank pain, always remember that it is related to kidney, any kidney stone or kidney disease or urinary tract infection or RCC is causes a pain which is called flank pain. So what is flank pain? Flank pain refers to discomfort in your upper abdomen or back and sides. It develops in the area below the ribs and above the pelvis, which is very important. Okay, and keep in your mind, whenever you see flank pain, always think that it is related to something kidney or kidney disorder. Okay, so this is what is flank pain. Now lastly, one more thing, that if you love this type of video or like this video, then of course give a like, and comment down below if you think that the questions were too hard or too easy. You can comment that too. And about the scoring, those who are non-USMLE aspirants, I think that even if you get 0, 1 or 2 or 3 correct, that is very good. But if you are a USMLE aspirant, then I personally think that you should get all 5 correct or at least 4 correct. Okay, so thank you for the video, and please like and subscribe.